Hello and welcome to this continuing first look exploring session looking at The Fawn by John Marston, or the Parasitaster, or however it's pronounced. It is a play. We're almost at the end of Act 2, about to burst into Act 3. It's a play without an excess of plot. It's more about setup and then wit. Yes, there's an awful lot of rudeness possibly going on as well. Quite a bit of that has occurred last time. So you have been warned that there may be some double entendres just lying around. To give this play a good shake, see what comes out of it. We have reading Hercules today is...
Hello, American. It's not that kind of Hercules, but I'm just going to pretend that it is.
Fair enough. Reading Tiberio today is...
Hello, Dan, actor based in Montpellier, France.
Reading Gonzago today is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth, based in Romford.
Reading Garbetza today is...
My name is Lynn. I live in the northwestern United States where it's very early, so I'm drinking coffee.
Reading Nymphadoro today is...
Hello, I'm Valentina. I am an Italian actor and voiceover artist in London, and I am drinking fake tea.
Reading Philocalia today is...
That is me, Rachael Nicole, actor in New Jersey.
Reading Puttotta and Herod today is...
Me, Briony Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Donnetta, Dondolo and a page today is...
If only it had been 3Ds. Greg here, somewhere in Cornwall.
It would have been if I could have given you Dulcimel, but Dulcimel has been handed to...
Hi, Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading Granufo, if Granufo ever says anything at all. So we left off the play, I say, towards the end of Act 2. We paused just before the entrance of Gonzago. So in fact, actually, we're going a few lines before where I say in the script we're going from where it says break one. We're going from the entrance of Gonzago. And yes, on stage we've had Hercules and various other people have been demonstrating wit and demonstrating the failures of their marriages. And at which point Gonzago and Granufo enter with Dulcimel, rather.
We would be private, only Fawn stay. He is a wise fellow, daughter, a very wise fellow, for he is still just of my opinion. My lord Granufo, you may likewise stay, for I know you'll say nothing. Say on, daughter.
And as I told you, sir,
and
Tiberio
exit everyone except for Gonzago, Granufo, Hercules and Dulcimel.
And as I told you, sir, Tiberio being sent, graced in high trust as to negotiate his royal father's love, if he neglect the honour of his faith, just care of state, and every fortune that gives likelihood to his best hopes, to draw our weaker heart to his own love, as I protest he does.
I'll rate the prince with such a heat of breath, his ears shall glow. Nay, I discovered him. I read his eyes as I can read any eye, though it speak in darkest characters. I can. Can we not, Fawn? Can we not, my lord? Why, I conceive you now. I understand you both. You both admire, yes. Says it not hit? Though we are old or so, yet we have wit.
And you may say, if so your wisdom please, as you are truly wise, how weak a creature soft woman is to bear the siege and strength of so prevailing feature and fair language. And of that is ever, you may add, if so your wisdom please, as you are wise.
As mortal man may be.
I am of years apt for his love, and if he should proceed in private urgent suit, how easy 'twere to win my love. For you may say, if so your wisdom please, you find in me a very forward passion to enjoy him, and therefore you beseech him seriously straight to forbear, with such close cunning art, to urge his too well-graced suit. For you, if so your lordship please, may say I told you all.
Go to. What I will say also, until I say, none but myself shall know. But I will say, go to. Does not my colour rise? It shall rise, for I can force my blood to come and go, as men of wit and state must sometimes feign their love, sometimes their hate. That's policy now, but come with this free heat, or this same estro or enthusiasm, for these are phrases both poetical. Will we go rate the prince, and make him see himself in us? That is, our grace and wits shall show his shapeless folly. Vice kneels while virtue sits.
Enter Tiberio.
But see, we are prevented. Daughter, in. It is not fit thyself should hear what I must speak of, thy most modest, wise mind. For thou art careful, sober, in all most wise, and indeed our daughter.
And exit Dulcimel.
My lord Tiberio, a horse but yet a colt may leave his trot. A man but yet a boy may well be broke from vain addictions. The head of rivers stop, the channel dries. He that doth dread a fire must put out sparks, and he who fears a bull must cut his horns off when he is a calf. Principiis obster, saith a learned man, who, though he was no duke, yet he was wise, and had some sense or no.
What means, my lord?
La, sir, thus men of brain can speak in clouds, which weak eyes cannot pierce. But, my fair lord, in direct phrase thus, my daughter tells me plain, you go about with most direct entreats, to gain her love, and to abuse her father. Oh, my fair lord, will you, a youth so blessed with rarest gifts of fortune and sweet graces, offer to love a young and tender lady? Will you, I say, abuse your most wise father, who, though he freeze in August, and his calves are sunk into his toes, yet may well wed our daughter, as old as he in wit? Will you, I say, for by my troth, my lord, I must be plain, my daughter is but young and apt to love so fit a person as your proper self, and so she prayed me to tell you. Will you now entice her easy breast to abuse your trust, her proper honour, and your father's hopes? I speak no figures, but I charge you check your appetite and passions to our daughter, before it head, nor offer conference, or seek access, but by and before us. What? Judge you us as weak or as unwise? No. You shall find that Venice Duke has eyes, and so think on it.
And exeunt Gonzago and Grenouilleau.
Astonishment and wonder. What means this? Is the Duke sober?
Why, have you not endeavoured courses that only seconded appetite, and not your honour or your trust of place? Do you not court the lady for yourself?
Fawn, thou dost love me. If I had done so, 'tis past my knowledge. And I prithee, Fawn, if thou observest, I know not what, make me to know it. For by the dear light, I had not found a thought that way. I apt for love? Let lazy idleness filled full of wine, heated with meats, high fed with lustful ease, go dote on colour. As for me, why doth the sense I court the lady? I was not born in Cyprus. I love? When? How? Whom? Think, let us yet keep our reason sound. I'll think and sleep.
And exit Tiberio.
Amazed, even lost in wondering, I rest full of covetous expectation. I am left as on a rock, from whence I may discern the giddy sea of humour flow beneath, upon whose back the vainer bubbles float and forthwith break. Oh, mighty flattery! Thou easiest, commonest, and most grateful venom, thou poisons courts and all societies, how grateful dost thou make me! Should one rail and come to fear of vice, beware leg rings and the turned key on thee, when if softer hand suppling a sword that itches, which should smart, free speech gains foes, base fawning steal the heart. Swell, you imposthumed members, till you burst, since 'tis in vain to hinder on all thrust. And when in shame you fall, I'll laugh from hence, and cry, so end all desperate impudence. Another's court shall show me where and how vice may be cured. For now, beside myself, possessed with almost frenzy from strong fervor, I know I shall produce things mere divine. Without immoderate heat, no virtues shine. For I speak strong, though strange. The dews that steep our souls in deepest thoughts are fury and sleep.
And exit Hercules. So, yeah, we've got one of those scenes where you're listening to Gonzago and you're going, what? And then, luckily, a character on stage says, what? Afterwards, and you really get a sense of what the game is with Gonzago, of just this never-ending failure to launch. That is the game there. I just love the line, is the Duke sober? It's just, every so often, Marston just seems to throw as a line that just seems awfully modern. That just leaps out of just going, yeah, that could have been written today. Amongst other stuff, which is very, very much of its own time. Thoughts from the room about these manoeuvrings between Dulcimel and Tiberio? What's going on in Tiberio's mind? What's going on in everybody's minds here as we're sort of getting back in? That's the end of the act. Music's playing. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, it would appear that the plot's had a long enough lie down and a nap, so it's actually come back for the first time since the end of Act 1. But yes, again, we seem to have got another Dear Moresto that Tiberio still doesn't seem to have clicked that Hercules oblique Fawn is his father.
Yeah, no, he's just some guy who happens to be translating what Gonzago's just said helpfully for him. And even then, Tiberio doesn't seem awfully keen. I mean, he's not exactly jumping for joy. Lynn.
Yeah, I'm just confused because sort of generically what you would expect by now is for Tiberio to have been won over by Dulcimel's charms, and Dulcimel is saying, I'm kind of lukewarm on the father, but I'm pretty warm for the son. So she's doing her job to move that along, and Tiberio's not, and that's just not what I would have expected. So that's really confusing. And to be honest, I really have no idea what Hercules / Faunus is on about in his last soliloquy. What's he even saying? Translation?
I thought he was primarily responding to what happened before this scene that we did yesterday. That he's actually more talking about the court in general. Okay, though of course Gonzago sort of does exemplify that, perhaps to a degree, in his sort of general uselessness. I could be wrong on that point. I'm just that's a bit of a guess. Briony, are you waving?
Yeah, I don't know. There seems to be a very strong concentration of innuendos in that particular speech as well, unless that's just my filthy mind. But like swelling members and thrusting and frenzy and fervor, that last speech seemed very loaded,
as it were. It's true. And how much of that is just simply the author playing some games that it's a question of how many can you squeeze into a text that may actually be working against what this particular speech is trying to do or not. Again, that's just a sort of thinking off the top of my head on that front. There's a slight sense of it's a bit difficult going into the text bang on this bit of the action, because actually its connection with what just came before was quite useful. Getting back, having just had an act of basically a series of courtiers coming in, going da 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 da, witty banter. And we did sort of discuss it last time as bants, as that's sort of the level of humour that's at play here. Other thoughts from the room before we dive into a new act entirely? No. Okay, well, we're just warming up. Eric, and then we'll move on.
I was just going to say that it's interesting how Hercules sort of goes, yeah, well, I could use all this like information as well as, sort of just having fun. I can use all this information from this court to sort of build better back home in a way.
Okay, so the music has been playing. We're going into Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Faunus and Nymphadoro. Faunus, of course, the disguised name for Hercules.
Faith, Fawn, 'tis my humour, my natural sin of my sanguine complexion. I am most enforcedly in love with all women, almost affecting them all with an equal flame.
An excellent justice of an upright virtue. You love all God's creatures with an impartial affection.
Right. Neither am I inconstant to anyone in particular.
Though you love all in general, true. For when you vow a most devoted love to one, you swear not to tender a most devoted love to another. And indeed, why should any man overlove anything? 'Tis judgment for a man to love everything proportionably to his virtue. I love a dog with a hunting pleasure as he is pleasurable in hunting. My horse, after journeying, is easiness as he is easy journeying. My hawk to the goodness of his wing, and my wench, and...
How, sweet Fawn? How?
Why, according to her creation. Wow. Nature made them pretty, toying, idle, fantastic, imperfect creatures. Even so, I would in justice affect them with a pretty, toying, idle, fantastic, imperfect affection. And as indeed they are only created for show and pleasures, so I would only love them for show and pleasure.
Why, that's my humour to the very thread. Thou dost speak my proper thoughts.
But, sir, with what possibility can your constitution be so boundlessly amorous as to affect all women, of what degree, form, or complexion soever?
I'll tell thee. For my own part, I am a perfect Vidian, and can with him affect all. If she be a virgin of a modest eye, shamed face, tempered aspect, her very modesty inflames me, her sober blushes fires me. If I behold a wanton, pretty, courtly, petulant ape, I am extremely in love with her, because she is not clownishly rude, and that she assures her lover of no ignorant, dull, unmoving Venus. But be she sourly severe, I think she wittily counterfeit, and I love her for her wit. If she be learned and censures poets, I love her soul, and for her soul her body. Be she a lady of professed ignorance, I am infinitely taken with her simplicity, as one are sure to find no sophistication about her. Be she slender and lean, she is the Greek's delight. Be she thick and plump, she is the Italian's pleasure. If she be tall, she is of a goodly form, and will print a fair proportion in a large bed. If she be short and low, she is nimbly delightful, and ordinarily quick-witted. Be she young, she's for mine eye. Be she old, she's for my discourse. As one well knowing, there's a much amiableness in a grave matron. But be she young or old, lean, fat, short, tall, white, red, brown, nay, even black, my discourse shall find reason to love her, if my means may procure opportunity to enjoy her.
Excellent, sir. Nay, if a man were of competent means, were it not a notable delight for a man to have for every month in that year?
Nay, for every week of the month.
Nay, for every day of the week.
Nay, for every hour of that day.
Nay, for every humour of a man in that hour to have a several mistress to entertain him, as if he were Saturnine or melancholy to have a black-haired, pale-faced, sallow-thinking mistress to clip him. If jovial and merry, a sanguine, light, tripping, singing. Indeed, a mistress that would dance a caranto as she goes to embrace him. If choleric, impatient, or ireful, to have a mistress with red hair, little ferret eyes, a lean cheek, and a sharp nose to entertain him, and so of the rest.
Enter Donnetta.
Oh, sir, these were too great ambition. Well, I love and am beloved of a great many, for I court all in the way of honour in the trade of marriage, Fawn. But above all, I affect the princess. She is my utmost end. Oh, I love a lady whose beauty is joined with fortune beyond all. Yet one of beauty without fortune for some uses. Nay, one of fortune without beauty for some ends. But never any that has neither fortune nor beauty, but for necessity. Such a one as this is Donna Donnetta. Here's one has loved all the court just once over.
Oh, this is the fair lady with the foul teeth. Nature's hand shook when she was in making, for the red that should have spread her cheeks, nature let fall upon her nose, the white of her chin slipped into her eyes, and the grey of her eyes leapt before his time into her hair, and the yellowness of her hair fell without providence into her teeth.
By the vow of my heart, you are my most only elected, and I speak by way of protestation. I shall no longer wish to be than that. Your only affection shall rest in me, and mine only in you.
But if you shall love any other?
Any other? Can any man love any other than knows you, the only perfection of your sex, and astonishment of mankind?
Oh, fie! You flatter me. Go where and understand my favour. This snail's slow, but sure.
This kiss.
Oh, farewell.
The integrity and only vow of my faith to you ever urge your well-deserved requital to me.
And exit Donnetta. Enter Garbetza.
Excellent.
See, here's another of...
of your most only elected.
Right? Donna Garbetza.
Oh, I will acknowledge this is the lady made of cutwork, and all her body like a sandbox, full of holes and contains nothing but dust. She chooses her servants as men choose dogs, by the mouth. If they open well and full, their cry is pleasing. If she may be chaste, for she has a bad face, and yet questionless she may be made a strumpet, for she is covetous.
By the vow of my heart, you are my most only elected, and I speak it by way of protestation. I shall no longer wish to be than all your affections shall only rest in me, and mine only in you.
Excellent. This piece of stuff is good on both sides. He's so constant, he will not change his phrase.
But shall I give faith? May you not love another?
Another? Can any man love another that knows you, the only perfection of your sex and admiration of mankind?
Your speech flies too high for your meaning to follow. Yet my mistrust shall not precede my experience. I wrought this favour for you.
The integrity and only vow of my faith to you ever urge your well-deserved requital to me.
Exit Garbetza.
Why, this is pure wit, nay, judgment.
Why, look thee, Fawn, observe me.
I do, sir.
I do love at this instant some 19 ladies, and all in the trade of marriage. Now, sir, whose father dies first, and whose portion appeareth most, or whose fortunes better soonest, her with quiet liberty at my leisure will I elect, for that's my humour.
And before anybody else enters, I think we need to unpack quite a lot of that, because there's a lot going on here. Because, on one level, what we've got here is Hercules is setting up an opportunity for Nymphadoro to demonstrate what a git they are, which is... which sort of gives Hercules a bit of an out in terms of saying some quite problematic things. But then, so we have these various people coming in. Nymphadoro has effectively a series of phrases that they use every time. It's obviously a surefire way of placating anyone. I wonder how many times the integrity and only vow of my faith do you ever urge your well-deserved requital to me. How often that gets used? We've got twice. Let's see if it gets used more. There's a lot going on here. Thoughts from the room? Who wants to dive into this swamp that is being portrayed here? Valentina, you had the joy of being Nymphadoro there.
I don't know what to say. It's really fun in a certain way, like to play, but at the same time, it's just awful. I mean, he loves women, but not for their brains, clearly. Unless if they're old, he does. But otherwise, no.
Yeah, well, he's in love with all women, but it's. I think the line that I did particularly. Neither am I inconstant to anyone in particular. So you're as unfaithful as you are faithful. Yes. There's a consistency there.
Well.
Lynn.
Yeah, there's a lot that makes me really uncomfortable about this scene. I mean, I want to like Hercules, but the way he talks about the first of Nymphadoro's paramours that comes on the scene is really icky. And it just occurs to me, I feel really bad for Dulcimel because the two men that are potential matches for her in this story, one of them is this cold fish that doesn't have any interest in her, and the other is this man whore who, admires her for her qualities, but mostly for her position, and isn't going to be faithful to her if he did manage to marry her. So, I mean, here she is, this really accomplished, really desirable woman, and she's just got fuck all for a choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's that question of the get out with Hercules. Is he, because of course he is pretending to be someone at the moment. How much of what he's saying is true, and how much is simply there to draw out the poison, and is that a good enough excuse for having that enacted on stage? Discuss, Briony.
I don't think we can redeem either of them because they have both agreed quite explicitly that women are only created for show and pleasure. So I don't know. Well, I suppose, like you say, he could just be acting, but I don't know.
Because he's in disguise. He is deliberately pretending to be one of these fauners. So it partly depends where the play goes. I don't know where the play's going. So it could be that he's also a git, as well as pretending to be a git. It's possible that he is both.
I feel like it's not going to end with a strong feminist vibe, though, somehow.
Well, I mean, the big problem is actually just straightforward representation of the female characters in the play. Because they don't really say anything even when they're there. It's all the blokes getting a chance to be a bit horrid. And at the moment, we're not getting any counterpoint to that yet. We've had a few minor flashes, but not a lot. Rachael, then Eric.
About not hearing what a lot of the women have to say. I mean, I agree, like, with the portrayal of women isn't like the best in this. Also, like, I think, like, if you were to stage this or something, it could be like the men in a corner, drinking and gossiping and like that type of thing. And the women are out of, we're staged to be out of earshot of this talk. If I mean, like at an actual party, they're up and dancing and they're, the women are up and dancing with somebody else and they're there in the corner, like pointing at them with their drinks or whatever, talking about them. And maybe that's why they're not in this, that it's just a large party. So they're off doing something else to explain that whatever. Yeah.
Eric, then Valentina.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, some of it is kind of not, I don't know, like, we were talking about innuendos yesterday, but this is not even innuendo. It's just like, yeah, it's beyond that. Like, yes, and her body, like a sandbox full of holes, contains nothing but dust. I'm like, what? That's just Yeah, just the descriptions are a bit, yeah, kind of over the top and really, really not very nice. But I like, there's a part of me going like, Hercules kind of, yeah, how can you trust anyone in this court? It's like with the malcontent where like, you can't trust anyone there either.
Yes, I mean, it's a very similar setup, just with less active plot going on. Whereas Malcontent has an active plot narrative going on. This is just sort of demonstrating and luxuriating in the opportunity of saying horrible things. I mean, it's almost like that's the trap that Master may have caught himself in. Valentina, then Lynn.
I mean, I wasn't here yesterday, so I don't have a representation of the women. So because so far we haven't encountered them today, but I'm wondering if this is one of those plays where if you have women play the men, that might become more of a discourse on like a representation of society as opposed to just plain sexism. I don't know.
Lynn.
I love that production concept. I think that's one way you could make this work on stage, is something that we're examining rather than endorsing, is have it be either cross-gender cast, both men as women, or have it be all women. That would be really interesting. I was just going to little historical note. I'm pretty sure the sandbox is a shaker of fine sand or silica or talc that you sprinkle on a freshly written manuscript to absorb the extra ink. So that's an artifact that we don't have anymore because we don't write with a dip pen anymore. But that's what a sandbox is.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, that this is satire is a dangerous word to sort of use as a catch-all to say, oh well, then it's fine for us to say horrible things because it's satire, which difficult to go all the way on that. But also that this is a boys' company play, so in the sense all of the characters playing men are actually men yet, and so that there is already a distancing effect that's in play for its original performance. Dan.
No, I think that's a very good point, and I think that even Marston himself points this out in his prologue to the readers, in his epistle to the readers, the idea that comedies are written to be spoken and not read. The way that text reads versus the way that text is going to be acted and portrayed by whom makes all of the difference here. So potentially, seriously problematic lines I'm not going to excuse what's actually being said, but it does matter who's saying them and whether the audience knows that or not, which is why I'm always a fan of not necessarily, well, we need to edit this out because it's going to hurt the audience will be offended. It's like, well, no, because this is how people speak, and some people speak, and they should be portrayed as they are, and then the audience can judge for themselves exactly what they think of them. So I'm imagining, because it's satirical, just like Rob is saying, yeah, obviously that doesn't excuse everything, but it's definitely satire and of the time period. And so who knows how this was accepted by the audience, but one can say this was printed again in the same year, so might have done well.
We'll go to Rachael, and then we'll move on.
I feel like maybe you could have had a reality show type appeal to this. You know what I mean? Where it has all the luxury, but there's no real plot to a reality show. You're really just watching for the personalities, and also like that this is like locker room talk or something like that. You know what I mean? Like like frat boy talk. So kind of what Dan was saying, that this is the way that some people talk, and this is like, disgusting, but it is real.
Yes, the cruelty of reality television. That might be an interesting lens to look at this, and that there is an appetite, an audience's appetite for such portrayals, for better or ill. Let us move on, as we have an entrance to these two. Hercules, still in disguise as Faunus, Nymphadoro, enter to them Dulcimel and Philocalia.
You profess a most excellent mystery, sir.
Poor heaven. See, the princess, she that is.
Your most only elected too?
Aye, but my hopes faint yet. By the vow of my heart, you are my most only elected, and...
There's a ship of fools going out. Shall I prefer thee, Nymphadoro? Thou mayst be master's mate. My father hath made Dondolo captain, else thou shouldst have his place.
By Jove, Fawn, she speaks as sharply and looks as sourly as if she had been new squeezed out of a crab orange.
I'll term you that lady with whom she holds discourse.
Oh, Fawn, 'tis a lady even above ambition, and like the vertical sun that neither forces others to cast shadows, nor can others force or shade her. Her style is Donna Philocalia.
Philocalia, what that renowned lady whose ample report hath struck wonder into remotest strangers, and yet her worth above that wonder. She whose noble industries hath made her breast rich in true glories and undying abilities. She that, whilst other ladies spend the life of earth time in reading their glass, their jewels, and the shame of poesy, lustful sonnets, gives her soul meditations. Those meditations wings that cleave the air, fan bright celestial fires whose true reflection make her see herself in them. She whose pity is ever above her envy, loving nothing less than insolent prosperity and pitying nothing more than virtue destitute of fortune.
There was a lady for Ferrara's duke, one of great blood, firm age, undoubted honour, above her sex, most modestly artful, though naturally modest, too excellent to be left unmatched, though few worthy to match with her.
I cannot tell. My thoughts grow busy.
The princess would be private. Void the presence.
And the men leave the room. Everyone breathe out.
May I rest sure thou wilt conceal a secret?
Yes, madame.
How may I rest assured?
Truly thus. Do not tell it me.
Why? Canst thou not conceal a secret?
Yes, as long as it is a secret, but when you know it, how can it be secret? And indeed, with what justice can you expect secrecy in me that cannot be private to yourself?
Faith, Philocalia, I must of force trust thy silence, for my breast breaks if I confer not my thoughts upon thee.
You may trust my silence. I can command that, but if I chance to be questioned, I must speak truth. I can conceal, but not deny my knowledge. That must command me.
Fie on these philosophical discoursing women. Prithee confer with me like a creature made of flesh and blood, and tell me if it be not a scandal to the soul of all being, proportion that I, a female of 15, of a lightsome and civil discretion, healthy, lusty, vigorous, full and idle, should forever be shackled to the crampy shins of a wayward, dull, sour, austere, rough, roomy 64.
Nay, 70 at the least.
No, heaven bless me. As it is pity that every knave is not a fool, so it is shame that every old man is not, and resteth not, a widower. They say in China, when women are past childbearing, they are all burnt to make gunpowder. I wonder what men should be done withal when they are past child-getting. Yet, upon my love, Philocalia, which with ladies is often above their honour, I do even dote upon the best part of the Duke.
What's that?
His son. Yes, sooth, and so love him that I must marry him.
And wherefore love him so to marry him?
Because I love him, and because he is virtuous, I love to marry.
His virtues.
I with him, his virtues.
I with him. Alas, sweet princess. Love or virtue are not of the essence of marriage.
A jest upon your understanding. I maintain that wisdom in a woman is most foolish quality. A lady of a good complexion, naturally well-witted, perfectly bred, and well exercised in discourse of the best men, shall make fools of 1,000 of these book-thinking creatures. I speak it by way of justification, I tell thee. Not that nobody eavesdrop us. I tell thee, I am truly learned, for I protest ignorance, and wise, for I love myself, and virtuous enough for a lady of 15.
How virtuous.
Shall I speak like a creature of a good healthful blood, and not like one of these weak, green sickness, lean, fistic starvelings? First, for the virtue of magnanimity. I'm very valiant, for it's no heroic action so particularly noble and glorious to our sex, as not to fall to action. The greatest deed we can do is not to do. Look that nobody listen. Then am I full of patience, and can bear more than a sumpter horse. For, to speak sensibly, what burthen is there so heavy to a porter's back as virginity to a well-complexioned young lady's thoughts? Look, nobody hearken. By this hand, the noblest vow is that of virginity, because the hardest. I will have that prince.
But by what means, sweet dame?
Oh, Philocalia, in heavy sadness and unwanton phrase, there lies all the brain work. By what means? I could fall into miserable blank verse presently.
But, dear madame, your reason of loving him.
Faith, only a woman's reason, because I was expressly forbidden to love him. At the first view, I liked him, and no sooner had my father's wisdom mistrusted my liking, but I grieved loath his judgment should err. I pitied he should prove a fool in his old age, and without cause mistrust me.
But when you saw no means of manifesting your affection to him, why did not your hopes perish?
Oh, Philocalia, that difficulty only inflames me. When the enterprise is easy, the victory is inglorious. No, let my wise, aged, learned, intelligent father, that can interpret eyes, understand the language of birds, interpret the grumbling of dogs and the conference of cats, that can even read silence. Let him forbid all interviews, all speeches, all tokens, all messages, all, as he thinks, human means. I will speak to the prince, court the prince, that he shall understand me. Nay, I will so stalk on the blind side of my all-knowing father's wit, that, do what his wisdom can, he shall be my only mediator, my only messenger, my only honourable spokesman. He shall carry my favours, he shall amplify my affection. Nay, he shall direct the prince in means the very way to my bed. He, and only he. When he only can do this, and only would not do this, he only shall do this.
Only you shall then deserve such a husband. O love, how violent are thy passages!
Oh, pish, Philocalia. 'Tis against the law of love, the nature of love, not to be violent.
And against the condition of violence to be constant.
Constancy? Constancy and patience are virtues in no living creatures, but sentinels and anglers. Here's our father.
Enter Gonzago, Hercules, and Granufo.
What? Did he think to walk invisibly before our eyes? And he had Gyges' ring, I would find him.
For Jove, you rated him with emphasis.
Did we not shake the prince with energy?
With Ciceronian elocution?
And most pathetic, piercing oratory?
If he have any wit in him, he will make sweet use of it.
Nay, he shall make sweet use of it ere I have done. Lord, what overweening fools these young men be, that think us old men sots.
Arrant asses.
Doting idiots. When we, God wot, Ha, ha! Alas, silly souls!
Poor weak creatures to men of approved reach,
Full years
of wise experience.
and approved wit.
Nay, as for your wit,
Count Granufo, as I live, this Faunus is a rare understander of men, is it not? Faunus, this Granufo is a right wise good lord, a man of excellent discourse, and never speaks his signs to me, and men of profound reach instruct abundantly. He begs suits with signs, gives thanks with signs, puts off his hat leisurely, maintains his beard learnedly, keeps his lust privately, makes a nodding leg courtly, and lives happily.
silence is an excellent modest grace, but especially before so instructing a wisdom as that of your excellencies. As for his advancement, you gave it most royally, because he deserves it least duly, since to give to virtuous desert is rather a due requital than a princely magnificence. When to undeservingness, it is merely all bounty and free grace.
Well spoke, 'tis enough. Don Granufo, this Faunus is a very worthy fellow, and an excellent courtier, and beloved of most of the princes of Christendom, I can tell you. For howsoever some severer dissembler grace him not when he affronts him in the full face, yet, if he comes behind or on the one side, he'll leer and put back his head upon him. Be sure, be you too precious to each other.
Sir, myself, my family, my fortunes are all devoted, I protest, most religiously to your service. I vow my whole self, only proud in being acknowledged by you, but as your creature. And my only utmost ambition is by my sword or soul to testify how sincerely I am consecrated to your adoration.
'Tis enough. Art a gentleman, Fawn?
Not uneminently descended, for were the pedigrees of some fortunately mounted searched, they would be secretly found to be of the blood of the poor Fawn.
'Tis enough. You too I love heartily, for thy silence never displeaseth me, nor thy speech ever offend me. See, our daughter attends us, my fair, my wise, my chaste, my duteous, and indeed in all my daughter. For such a pretty soul for all the world have I been. What? I think we have made the prince to feel his error. What? Did he think he had weak fools in hand? No, he shall find, as wisely said Lucullus, young men are fools that go about to gull us.
But sooth, my wisest father, the young prince is yet forgetful, and resteth resolute in his much unadvised love.
Is it possible?
Nay, I protest, whate'er he feign to you, as he can feign most deeply.
Right, we know it. For if you marked, he would not once take sense of any such intent from him. O impudence, what mercy canst thou look for?
And as I said, royally wise and wisely royal father.
I think that eloquence is hereditary.
Though he can feign, yet I presume your sense is quick enough to find him.
Quick, is it not, Granufo? Is it not, Fawn? Why, I did know you feigned, nay, I do know, by the just sequence of such impudence, that he hath laid some second siege unto thy bosom, with most miraculous conveyances of some rich present on thee.
Oh, bounteous heaven! How liberal are your graces to my Nestor-like father!
Is it not so? Say.
'Tis so, oraculous father. He hath now more than courted with bare phrases. See, father, see, the very bane of honour, corruption of justice and virginity, gifts hath he left with me. Oh, view this scarf, this, as he called it, most envied silk, that should embrace an arm or waist or side, which he much feared should never. This he left, despite my much resistance.
Did he so? Give it me. I'll give it him. I'll re-give his token with so sharp advantage.
Nay, my worthy father, read but these cunning letters.
Letters? Where? of you but justly loving and conceive me, till justice leave the gods, I'll never leave thee. For though the Duke seems wise, he'll find this strain, where two hearts yield consent, all thwarting's vain. And darest thou then aver this wicked writ, O world of wrenching wiles, where is thy wit?
Enter Tiberio.
But other talk for us were far more fit. See, here comes Prince Tiberio.
Daughter, upon thy obedience, instantly take thy chamber.
Dear father, in all duty, let me beseech your leave that I may but...
Go to, go to. You are a simple fool, a very simple animal.
Yet let me, the loyal servant of simplicity...
What would you do? What? Are you wiser than your father? Will you direct me?
Heavens forbid such insolence. Let me denounce my hearty hatred.
To what end?
Though it be but in the prince's ear, since it fits not maiden blush to rail aloud.
Go to, go to.
Let me but check his heat.
Well, well.
And take him down, dear father, from his full pride of hopes.
So, I say once more, go in.
And exeunt Dulcimel and Philocalia, leaving Tiberio and Gonzago on stage. But we'll just pause because there's quite a lot there to unpack. A lot going on there as we have Dulcimel and Philocalia left alone, and Philocalia gives a really good bit of advice there of, can you keep a secret? Well, I can if you don't tell me anything. And you know what? I will never, and makes really good points about, I'll conceal it, but if someone asks me a direct question, I'm going to tell them, especially if they have sharp, pointy things. Lots of thoughts. I'm sure in the room, so I'll go to Lynn first.
Well, I like this scene almost as much as I disliked the scene between Hercules and Nymphadoro. I like Philocalia. She's not just the sort of prude or Puritan that she's described as being in the conversation right before this. She's actually very clever and kind of wry. And I just sort of picture her sort of old and wise. She's seen it all before. Young people in love. And Dulcimel's really quite clever. Not only has she decided, I like Tiberio and I am going to have him, and I'm going to make my father the messenger of my love just because I can. He gave me the scarf. Yeah, that's it. And these letters, he gave me these. Why don't you give them back to him for me? Very clever, and I'm really liking the women in this little bit.
Yeah, Dulcimel seems really clued in. She has analysed what society expects of her and has figured out how to play that system. I mean, she's not going to go against the system. She just knows how to work it. And there's something very interesting going on there. Rachael?
Yeah, I think that what you just said is really important, because I think both these women, they know how to work in this court. They know how duplicitous it is, and how to take advantage of a secret being spilled. Because Gonzago isn't going to keep that, secret that she's in love with him. That's what it is. You have to figure out how to work the court if you want to survive in it.
Alan?
What I found slightly confusing was the fact that you got Dulcimel and Philocalia on stage for that rather extended passage between the chaps. Whether they're supposed to have withdrawn to a corner upstage or something, I don't know. Or whether they are expected to be actually hearing what is being said.
I'm sure she's vaguely they're vaguely engaged in it, even at the periphery. Dulcimel and Philocalia do vaguely engage with it, so I think they're listening. I think they're vaguely there. Some of it could be asides. I think there's a lot of questions about some of this dialogue actually as to where it's precisely going. I think there's a lot of pointing that in rehearsal we could really pull out. Yeah, Eric.
I guess also like going back to the Dulcimel and Philocalia scene, you could like sort of you could juxtapose that with like sort of the long words with the scene with Zoya that we saw yesterday, where she kind of spreads a secret in order to sort of get rid of her husband, basically. Which is kind of a different use of secrets. I don't know. I guess maybe the sort of subtitle of this play could be like secrets that you can keep and secrets that you can't.
Well, it's Dulcimel making the point that the expectation here is that they will do nothing. That's their position in society is a negative one, and that the best way to make everything work is to effectively gull her own father into acting on her behalf. Because it's not like she can make any direct overtures, and basically make Tiberio's position a fait accompli. It's a very clever little setup, as Lynn has already said, and the fact that also I think we should just go back to Gonzago for a bit as well, of just going explicitly talking at great length about Granufo, and actually know that he appears to have some sort of very physical action that is almost like there's a mime following the thing. There's an expectation he definitely won't speak. That's why he's there. It's great he can communicate in other ways. And there were some thoughts in the chat that people may or may not want to elaborate upon. But yeah, so we're getting these odd bits, and Gonzago as a character continues to be fascinatingly clueless, and the way he's being worked by Hercules there, who again is doing the fawning stuff. It's a bit, how extreme is Hercules' fawning? How over the top is it? And maybe that's a clue to defanging some of the problems in the earlier scene, if it's ridiculously over the top. Eric?
I was just wondering about that, because like also Gonzago talks at him at length about, oh, these youngsters, they don't understand anything there, this lack of experience, and then sort of Hercules agrees with him. So there's a point going, to what extent like does he sort of basically not really, is he just wearing like, I don't know, glasses as a disguise as opposed to like full on costume kind of thing?
I don't think Hercules' fawness is pretending to be younger per se. We had a bit of a discussion about that yesterday. I mean, I don't think Gonzago knows what he looks like.
Yeah. But I think it is that thing of, yes, look, I have a disguise on, it just kind of feels a bit like Gonzago kind of doesn't really, just needs someone to talk to. He doesn't, someone to relate to him, rather than someone to actually engage in conversation with him.
Gonzago needs someone to talk at. He doesn't need a response. That's why he loves Granufo, because he can just talk at him, and Granufo will just do some actions, and it will all be fine. Never-ending monologue of Gonzago. It's not conversation. It's always monologue. Okay, we have Gonzago to continue his monologue. He's going to monologue in a different direction. Tiberio will occasionally get a word in edgeways. Good luck, Tiberio. Everyone else has exited, apart from Granufo, who is obviously there to speak volumes through his actions. So Gonzago continues talking in the general direction of Tiberio.
I will not lose the glory of reproof. Is this the office of ambassadors, my lord Tiberio? Nay, duty of a son, nay, piety of a man. A figure called in art gradatio, with some learned climax. To court a royal lady, for's master, father, or perchance his friend, and yet intend the purchase of his beauty to his own use.
Your grace doth much amaze me.
I fain dissemble, lass. We are now grown old, weak-sighted. Alas, anyone fools us.
I deeply vow, my lord.
Peace, Be not damned. Have pity on your soul. I confess, sweet prince, for you to love my daughter, young and witty, of equal mixture both of mind and body, is neither wondrous nor unnatural. Yet to forswear and vow against one's heart is full of base, ignoble cowardice. Since 'tis most plain, such speeches do contemn heaven and fear men. That's sententious now.
My gracious lord, if I unknowingly have erred, then...
Unknowingly? Can you blush, my lord? Unknowingly? Why, can you write these lines, present this scarf unknowingly, my lord, to my dear daughter? Unknowingly? Can you urge your suit, prefer your gentlest love, in your own right, to her too easy breast, that, God knows, takes too much compassion on ye, and so she prayed me say, unknowingly? My lord, if you can act these things unknowingly, know we can know your actions so unknown, for we are old, I will not say in wit, for even just worth must not approve itself. But take your scarf, for she vows she'll not wear it.
Nay, but my lord...
Nay, but my lord, you must take it, wear it, keep it. For by the honour of our house and blood, I will deal wisely and be provident. Your father shall not say I panderized or fondly winked at your affection. No, we'll be wise. This night our daughter yields your father's answer. This night we invite your presence, therefore, to a feastful waking. Tomorrow to Ferrara you return, with wished answer to your royal father. Meantime, as you respect our best relation of your fair bearing, Granufo, is it not good? Of your fair bearing, rest more anxious. No, anxious is not a good word. Rest more vigilant over your passion, both for bear and bear. Aneshu e apeshu. That's Greek to you now. Else your youth shall find our nose not stuffed, but we can take the wind and smell you out. I say no more but thus, and smell you out. What? Have we not our eyes, our nose and ears? What? Are these hairs unwise? Look to it, quos ego, a figure called aposiopasis or increpatio.
And exeunt Gonzago and Granufo.
Prove you but justly loving and conceive me. Justice shall leave the gods before I leave thee. Imagination prove as true as thou art sweet. And though the duke seem wise, he'll find this strain when two hearts yield consent, all thwarting's vain. Oh, quick, deviceful, strong-brained Dulcimel, thou art too full of wit to be a wife. Why dost thou laugh? Or what strong heat gave love to such faint hopes? Woman, thou art made most only of, and for thy deceit. Thy form is nothing but delusion of our eyes, our ears, our hearts, and sometimes of our hands. Hypocrisy and vanity brought forth without male heat, thy most monstrous being. Shall I abuse my royal father's trust and make myself a scorn, the very food of rumor infamous? Shall I that ever loathed a thought of woman now begin to love? My worthy father's right, break faith to him that got me to get a faithless woman?
True, my worthy lord, your grace is very pious.
To take from my good father the pleasure of his eyes and of his hands, imaginary solace of his fading life.
His life that only lives to your soul good.
And myself good, his life's most only end.
Which, may never end.
Yes, Fawn, in time. We must not prescribe to nature everything. There's some end in everything.
But in a woman, yet as she is a wife, she is oftentimes the end of her husband.
Shall I say?
Shall you, I say, confound your own fair hopes, cross all your course of life, make yourself vain to your once steady graveness, and owe to second the ambitious quickness of a monstrous love that's only out of difficulty born, and followed only for the miracle of in the obtaining? I would have you now tell her father all.
Uncompassionate, vile man. Shall I not pity if I cannot love? Or rather, Shall I not pity, for pity, love so wondrous wit in so most wondrous beauty, that with such rarest art and cunning means entreats? What I think valueless, am not worthy but to grant my admiration, our fathers to be thought on in our loves?
True right, sir, fathers or friends the crown and love hath none, but are allied to themselves alone. Your father, I may boldly say, he's an ass to hope that you'll forbear to swallow what he cannot chew. Nay, 'tis injustice truly for him to judge it fit that you should starve for that which only he can feast his eye withal and not digest.
On what man of so cold earth but must love such a wit and such a body? Thou last and only rareness of heaven's works, from best of man made model of the gods? Divinest woman, thou perfection of all proportions beauty, made when Jove was blithe, well filled with nectar and full friends with man, thou dear as air, necessary as sleep to careful man. Woman, who can sin so deeply as to be cursed from knowing of the pleasures? Thy soft society, modest amorousness yields to our tedious life. Fawn, the Duke shall not know this.
Unless you tell him. But what hope can live in you when your short stay and your most shortened conference, not only actions but even looks observed, cut off all possibilities of obtaining?
Hush, Fawn, to violence of women's love and wit, nothing but not obtaining is impossible. Nuntuque florens quid femina possit.
But then how rest you to your father true?
To him that only can give dues, she rests most due.
And exit Tiberio.
Even so, he that with safety would well lurk in courts to best elected ends, of force is wrung to keep broad eyes, soft feet, long ears, and most short tongue. For 'tis of knowing creatures the main art to use quick hams, wide arms, and most close heart.
And exit Hercules. So we've got ironies being piled on each other there with Hercules just going, and Tiberio, the Duke shall not know this unless you tell him. Lots of fun playing with that. Gonzago, again, just completely bamboozling poor Tiberio there. As well as, I'm really interested in the way Gonzago is playing with his speech writing while he's speaking. And it's like there must be lots of visual cues coming from Granufo, just sort of going, no, not a good phrase. Stick with that one. That's a good one. And yeah, there's something fascinating about that, and the way he plays with these ideas. Gonzago, apart from the fact there's an awful lot of text that is basically just one ongoing monologue, but as a double act, actually, I'm just thinking that's what he is. It's you've got these two people who are always on stage together, one who says nothing and the other one who is all words, and that's a really nice setup, and I'm really interested in that. Thoughts on the room as we close Act 3. Lynn.
Well, there's a challenge for an actor. I don't really see on this first read through where exactly Tiberio does that about face. Because first he's saying, how could I betray my father for a mere woman? And then he's like, how could I resist such a beautiful, desirable match? So where does that turnaround happen? I mean, I think it would be a really fun scene to work through and have an actor make choices about that, because that's really quite the reversal, and it seems quite sudden.
Yeah, Dan, how are you feeling about Tiberio? Because there does seem to be, presumably he's just been repressing his true feelings throughout the whole play, or something like that. I don't know. How did you feel about that sort of change in direction that he seems to go through?
I mean, as an actor, it's fun to do that. Always, you don't want just a straightforward path through it. At what point it actually happens, because I didn't really, apart from highlighting my text and changing some things here and there, I'd chosen it to be when he's reading the scarfs. there, because he reads it and then does a little aside about his reading. Oh, imaginary proofs is true as thou art sweet. And then all of a sudden, I didn't really unpack the statement, but all of a sudden has turned on Dulcimel there. I really like the rhythm of this, the idea that there's a lot of speaking and Tiberio just keeping kind of silent until he kind of just explodes, it seems. It's very clever how Marston has really laid this out. I should say that Marston, as we've seen in a couple of other readings, really plays around with rhythm and timing, and it's aided by the punctuation or lack thereof at times.
Yeah, that we've gone for. We have these moments of just one word here or there, as well as the way the speeches unfurl. It's that the dynamics of dialogue is really complex at times. Yeah. Other thoughts, Eric?
There's a part of me thinking that, like, as a piece of writing, it's aside from the pace and all that stuff, it would work as a sort of episodic TV show, sort of like Friends, because it's got that element of, like, the cast of characters from the beginning. You find out like different elements about the characters as you go along, and it kind of, what do you call it? It reveals different aspects of the main character, Hercules, while actual stuff happens to other characters, or like, sort of while things are being moved forward. I don't know, it just seems like each part of each entrance and exit could be sort of potentially a different episode.
Yes, there is a certain episodic quality, though every so often, it was Gonzago who sort of did it. There was a little bit where suddenly he's going, oh, Gonzago's speech seems to be making sense. He's talking about plot. And it's like suddenly he can go from someone who just sort of says words that are interpretive from the receiver's point of view, as opposed to what he's trying to say. And then every so often, no, actually, he can talk perfectly clearly. You've got to go back to your father and do even though, of course, the way it's being received may be still interpretive. It is useful to sort of just hang your hat on and go, okay, we're this far into this.
Yeah, it's really cleverly written in that way that it seems like he's just spouting off a lot of nonsense at times, but it's very performative. I think it's all part of his character to be doing all of that. It may not seem to have any kind of deep content to it, but really rather in his actually just speaking them out and seemingly wasting time, he's setting it up.
Other thoughts before we dive into Act 4? No. Okay, let's go into Act 4 then. Music fades. Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Hercules and Garbetza.
Why, 'tis a most well in a fashion affection, Donna Garbetza. Your knight, Sir Amorous, is a man of most unfortunate back, spits white, has an ill breath, at 3 after dinner goes to the bath, takes the diet, nay, which is more, takes tobacco. Therefore, with great authority, you may cuckold him.
I hope so. But would that friend my brother discover me? Would he wrong himself to prejudice me?
No prejudice, dear Garbetza. His brother, your husband, right. He cuckolded his eldest brother, true. He gets her with child just.
Sure, there's no wrong in right, true and just.
And indeed, since the virtue of procreation growed hopeless in your husband, to whom should you rather commit your love and honor to than him that is most like and near your husband, his brother? But are you assured your friend and brother rests entirely, solely constant to you?
To me? Oh, Fawn, let me sigh it with joy into thy bosom. My brother has been wooed by this and that and t'other lady to entertain them, for I have seen their letters. But his vow to me, O Fawn, is most immutable, unfeigning, peculiar, and indeed deserved.
Enter Puttotta and a page, Puttotta with a letter in her hand.
Never entreat me, never beseech me to have pity, forsooth, on your master, M. Herod. Let him never be so daringly ambitious as to hope, with all his vows and protestations, to gain my affection. God's my discretion. Has my sutlery, tapestry, laundry, made me be ta'en up at the court? preferred me to a husband? And have I advanced my husband with the labour of mine own body from the blackguard to be one of the Duke's drummers, to make him one of the court forkers? Shall I, that purify many lords and some ladies, can tell who wears perfume, who plasters, and for why, know who's a gallant of a chaste shirt, and who not? Shall I become, or dares your master think I will become, or if I would become, presumes your master to hope I would become one of his common feminines? No, let Herod brag of his brother's wife. I scorn his letters and her leavings at my heel, if faith, and so tell him.
Nay, softly, dear Puttotta, Mistress Puttotta, Madam Puttotta. Oh, be merciful to my languishing master. He may in time grow great and well-graced courtier, but he wears yellow already. Mix, therefore, your loves. As for Madam Garbetza, his brother's wife, you see what he writes there.
I must confess, he says she is a spiny green creature of an unwholesome barren blood and cold embrace, a bony thing of most unequal hips, uneven eyes, ill-ranked teeth, and indeed one, but that she hires him, he endures not, yet for all this does he hope to dishonest me? I am for his betters. I would he should well know it. For more by many than my husband know, I am a woman of a known sound and upright carriage, and so he shall find if he deal with me. And so tell him, I pray you. What? Does he hope to make me one of his gills, his punks, polecats, flirts, and feminines?
And exit. As Puttotta goes out, she flings away the letter. The page puts it up, and as he is talking, Hercules steals it out of his pocket.
Oh, alas, my miserable master, what suds art thou washed into? Thou art born to be scorned of every carted community, and yet he'll outcrack a German when he is drunk. Or a Spaniard after he has eaten a fumatho, but he is lying with that and t'other lady. He lay last night in such a Madonna's chamber. T'other night he lay in such a countess's couch. Tonight he lies in such a lady's closet. Oh, and poor I know all this while he only lied in his throat.
And exit the page, leaving Hercules and Garbetza on stage.
Madam, let me sight in your bosom how immutable and unfainting, and indeed...
Fawn, I will undo that rascal. He shall starve for any further maintenance.
You may make him come to the covering and recovering of his old doubtlets.
He was in fair hope of proving heir to his elder brother, but he has gotten me with child.
So you withdrawing your favor, his present means fail him, and by getting you with child, his future means forever rest despairful to him.
Oh, heaven, that I could curse him beneath damnation! Impudent varlet! By my reputation, Fawn, I only loved him because I thought only I did not love him. He vowed infinite beauties doted on him. Alas, I was a simple country lady, wore gold buttons, trunk sleeves, and flagon bracelets. In a state of innocency was I brought up to the court.
And now, instead of country innocency, have you got court honesty? Well, madam, leave your brother to my placing. He shall have a special cabin in the ship of fools.
Right. Remember, he has gotten his elder brother's wife with child, and so deprived himself of his inheritance.
That will stow him under hatches, I warn you.
And so deprived himself of inheritance. Dear Fawn, be my champion.
The very scourge of your most basely offending brother.
Ignoble villain, that I might see thee wretched without pity and recovery. Well.
And in a moment, we have the entrance of Herod and Nymphadoro. A suggestion here that Garbetza exits, though I don't have anything in the script, but doesn't say anything, certainly for a while. So, yes, we've got complications, things from stuff that was sort of mentioned earlier. We've got some very interesting dialogue. I'm liking the lie gag from the page. That's a really nice bit of work there. Again, continuation of various problematic of business, as it were, amongst this venal court. But they are all sorts in this, and I think we've got another act where we're going to be re-meeting some people we met earlier in a slightly different configuration. That's just my suspicion. Second callback to Ship of Fools, so lots of referencing. We're getting several things twice, or at least, so I'm just wondering whether there's an extended thing there that might be in reference at play. Thoughts in the room? Must have thoughts. Someone must have thoughts. Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that Ship of Fools one earlier because it's kind of like she mentioned who mentioned that earlier, because it's just like, okay, Hercules was in the room and probably the one it was referring to or something, but like, yeah, just the imagery is just wow, and the language even worse. But like there's still that whole thing that Marston does describing like fashion, food. He does the whole thing of like, you know, gold buttons, trunk sleeves, and flagon bracelets and that kind of thing. It just kind of, yeah. But the really interesting part is where Hercules goes, oh, instead of country innocency, have you found court honesty? Like, it's not much better, is it?
Garbetza's line there about I was a simple country lady, and how to unpack that whole speech. There's something interesting. I'm assuming there's a whole series of ironies sort of played up in the way that runs. So that's a really interesting little bit. Lynn.
Yeah, court honesty is a beautiful oxymoron, isn't it? So, yeah.
Other thoughts?
Well, also the sort of, you kind of suspect that, you know, country innocency is not really country innocency either.
Okay, so we got letters and things passing around. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was just thinking when Garbetza says, "Oh, dear Fawn, be my champion," of how much we are as an audience invested in the characters of the play and in the fallout of the narrative. I was really like focused and like listening to any clues as to what's going to happen. And I think it's quite a testament to Marston that at this point in the narrative, I still don't know how it's going to go.
Do we think the love plot's going to end all happily? And what's going to happen to the rest of the court? This is the question. Are they going to get some sort of comeuppances, or are they just going to continue? What's going on with this particular ship of state? Is it going to sink or swim? Okay, we have one last chunket to go, but I'll go to Eric first.
Yeah, it has the sort of, I was thinking about this earlier, it has that feel of like sort of like Volpone, where none of the characters are particularly good, or they're interesting and very sort of vile in the worst sort of way, I guess, but it doesn't sort of, it's just interesting as the sort of play.
Yeah. Okay, let's rejoin Hercules with the entrance of Herod and Nymphadoro.
And Herod, you are full met, sir.
But not met full, sir. I am as gaunt as a hunting gelding after 3 trained scents. For Venus, Fawn, I have been shaling of peas cods. Upon 4 great Madonnas have I this afternoon grafted the forked tree.
Is it possible?
Possible? Fie on this satiety. 'Tis a dull, blunt, weary, and drowsy passion. Who would be a proper fellow to be thus greedily devoured and swallowed among ladies? Faith, 'tis my torment, my very rack.
Right, Herod, true. For imagine all a man possessed with a perpetual pleasure like that of generation, even in the highest lusciousness, he straight sinks as unable to bear so continual, so pure, so universal a sensuality.
By even truth, 'tis very right. And for my part, would I were eunuched rather than thus sucked away with kisses, enfeebling dalliance, and oh, the falling sickness on them all! Why did reasonable nature give so strange, so rebellious, so tyrannous, so insatiate parts of appetite to so weak a governess, a woman?
Or why, oh custom, didst thou oblige them to modesty, such cold temperance that they must be wooed by men, courted by men? Why, all know that they are more full of strong desires, those desires most impatient of delay or hindrance. They have more unruly passions than men, and weaker reason to temper those passions than men.
Why then hath not the discretion of nature thought it just that customary coyness, old fashions, terms of honour and of modesty, forsooth, all laid aside, they court not us, beseech not us rather, for sweets of love than we them? Why, by Janus, women are but men turned the wrong side outward.
Oh, sir, nature is a wise workman. She knows right well that if women should woo us to the act of love, we should all be utterly shamed. How often should they take us unprovided when they are always ready?
Aye, sir, right, sir. To some few such unfortunate handsome fellows as myself am, to my grief I know it.
Why, here are two perfect creatures. The one Nymphadoro loves all, and my Herod here enjoys all.
Faith, some score or two of ladies or so ravish me among them, divide my presence, and would indeed engross me, were I indeed such an ass as to be made a monopoly of. Look, sirrah, what a viled hand one of them writes. Who would ever take this for a D, dearest, or read this for only dearest?
Here's a lie indeed.
True, but here's another much more legibly, a good secretary, my most affected Herod, the utmost ambition of my hopes and only.
There is one lie better shaped by odds.
Right, but here's a lady's Roman hand to me is beyond all. Look ye, to her most elected servant and worthy friend, Herod Baldonzozo, Esquire, I believe thou knowest what countess's hand this is. I'll show thee another.
No, good Herod, I'll show thee one now. To his most elected mistress and worthy laundress, divine mistress Puttotta at her tent in the wood yard or elsewhere, give these...
Prithee, have silence.
What's that? If my tears are vows, my faithfulest protestations on my knees.
Good hold.
Fair and only loved laundress.
Forbear, I beseech thee.
Might move thy stony heart to take pity on my sighs.
Do not shame me to the day of judgment.
Alas, I write it in passion. Alas, thou knowest besides my loathed sister, thou art...
For the Lord's sake.
The only hope of my pleasure, the only pleasure of my hopes. Be pleased, therefore, to...
Cease, I beseech thee.
Pish, there blush, man. 'Tis an uncourtly quality. As for thy lying, as long as there is policy in it, it is very possible. Wherefore has heaven given man tongue, but to speak to a man's own glory? He has that cannot swell bigger than his natural skin, nor seem to be in more grace than he is, has not learned the very rudiments or ABC of courtship.
Upon my heart, Fawn, thou pleasest me to the soul. Why, look you, for mine own part, I must confess...
Enter Donnolo.
See, here's the Duke's fool.
Aboard! 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 All manners of fools of court, city or country of what degree, sex or nature.
Fool!
Herod,
What, are you full freighted? Is your ship well fooled?
Oh, 'twas excellently thronged, full, a justice of peace, though we had one of the most illiterate asses in the country, could hardly have got a hanging cabin. Oh, whoa, we had first some long fortunate great politicians that were so sottishly paradised as to think, when popular hates are seconded prince's displeasure to them, any unmerited violence would seem to the world injustice. Some purple fellows whom chance reared and their own deficiencies of spirit hurled down. We had some courtiers that brought their offices and yet durst fall in love. Oh, dear. Priests that forsook their functions to avoid a thwart stroke with a wet finger. Oh, but now, alas, Fawn, there's space and place.
Why, how gat all these forth? Was not the warrant strong?
Yes, but they got to supersede us. All of them proved themselves either knaves or madmen, and so were all let go. Oh, there's none left now in our ship but a few citizens that let their wives keep their shop books. Yeah. Oh, some philosophers and a few critics, one of which critics has lost his flesh with fishing at the measure of Plautus's verses. Oh, another has vowed to get the consumption of the lungs, or to leave to posterity the true orthography and pronunciation of laughing. A third have melted a great deal of suet, worn out his thumbs with turning, read out his eyes, and studied his face out of a sanguine into a meagre, sprawling, flimmy, liverous loathsomeness. And to all find but why Mentula should be the feminine gender, since the rule is propria quae marobus, tribintor mascara dicas. These philosophers, critics, and all the maids we can find at 16 are all fraught now.
Oh, then your ship of fools is full.
True, the maids are 17, Philip.
It? Quoth you, alas. We have very few. And those we feign to take in the country too.
But what philosophers are ye?
Oh, very strange fellows. One knows nothing, dares not ever he lives, goes, sees, and feels.
A most insensible philosopher.
Another, that there is no present time, and that one man today and tomorrow is not the same man. So that he that yesterday owed money, today owes none. Because he is not the same man.
Would that philosophy would hold good in law.
But why has the Duke thus laboured to have all the fools shipped out of his dominions?
Marry, because he would play the fool himself alone without any rival.
Wear your breech, fool.
I warrant thee, old lad, 'tis the privilege of poor fools to talk before an intelligencer. Marry, if I can fool myself into a lordship, as I know some have fooled themselves out of a lordship, oh, but I grown some huge fellow and got the leer of the people upon me if the fates had so decreed it. Oh, I should talk treason, though I never open my lips.
Indeed, Fatus Agrimor said it to Fatus, but how runs rumour? What breath's strongest in the palace now? I think you know all.
Yes. We fools think we know all. The prince hath audience tonight. Is feasted, and after supper is entertained with no comedy, mask, or barristers, but with...
What, I prithee?
What, I prithee?
With a most new and special shape of delight.
What, for Jove's sake?
Oh, marry, gallants, a session, a general council of love, summoned in the name of Don Cupid, to which, upon pain of their mistress's displeasure, shall appear all favour wearers, sonnets mongers, health drinkers, and meat enrichers of barbers and perfumers. And to conclude, all that can or wag the tail are upon grievous pains of their back, summoned to be assistant in that session of love.
Hold. Do not pour the delight before it come to our palate. And what other rumour keeps there in men's lungs?
Oh, the egregiousness of folly! Have you not heard of Gonzago?
What of him, good fool?
Separated.
Divorced?
Oh, that salt! Oh, that criticism! Oh, that very old epigram of a woman! That analysis, that compendium of wittiness!
Now, Jesu, what words the fool has!
We have still such words, but I will not unshale the jest before it be ripe, and therefore, kissing your worship's fingers in most sweet terms, without any sense, and with most fair looks, without any good meaning, I most court-like take my leave. Basilis manus to vostra signoria.
Stay, fool, we'll follow thee, for heaven we must prepare ourselves for this session.
And they exit, and we're breaking there. Okay, this is helpful as well as confusing. As the Ship of Fools goes from being a sort of a background reference in passing to something that seems to be becoming quite literal. I mean, I'm expecting them to be loading up the B-arc for the telephone sanitizers and launching them into space so that they're not taken out by a giant space goat. It suddenly becomes literal that. I don't know how literal this thing that is being stated is. It's a prelude also to mentioning there's going to be a mask coming up with Cupid, and some sort of sorting is going to be occurring. So those hoping for some kind of resolution to the people of the court, it's always like heading towards Act 5 and there's going to be a mask. Nothing bad can happen in Act 5 in a mask, can it? No. So those hoping for bad things to happen to bad people, you may or may not be getting your wish to come true. So yeah, it's there's a lot going on here. But yes, suddenly going very explicitly to go on about the Ship of Fools, which comes in various different iterations through the centuries, starting off with Plato, but there are other early modern iterations, both in visual art and in literature. So it's a well-known trope that they're playing with here. But yeah, it's really interesting things. Thoughts from the room about what's going on here? Greg, I think you enjoyed yourself. Dondolo there, constantly referred to a fool. I mean, is he? That raises all sorts of questions about what this character is actually now, who they are as well. Actually,
when we were leading up to him, fab. Love those speeches about the who's on the ship. I mean, the fun you can have again if you're in a small playhouse, which I think we were saying earlier, or at least a small stage. You could really pick the audience out in those speeches and have some huge fun with those. But I was going back, and I think it was Helen many months ago talked about natural fools and
artificial.
Artificial, thank you. I didn't want to say artificial because it sounded wrong, but yeah.
I think that's right. Dan. I think we were discussing this only the other day.
It just made me wonder which one Dondolo is. Is he natural, or because he feels like he's artificial to me? But I don't know. But yeah, I really, really love it. I mean, three of the great little parts this afternoon, but that was my favourite. It's raising expectations about where this play might now be heading, which would have been quite useful if we had them earlier. Actually, I'm almost feeling for production you need to almost lean into the whole Ship of Fools element as in some form of introductory tableau, so that the audience is to some degree reassured this play has a velocity.
that is known. It's not quite the right word. Anyway, other thoughts in the room about this scene? Rachael.
The ship of fools, like how it's growing from a metaphor into an actual thing. I wonder if it's like one of those things where they have so much money that they've just decided to have a whole themed party around this joke, and somebody has actually commissioned a ship to have a bunch of, people brought on, and they'll have like a yacht party, perhaps, and they're bringing the most foolish or fun people they know to give themselves a good time.
Because it could be that Dondolo has slightly misunderstood elements there, and that he's taking something slightly more literally. That he's actually talking more about the subtext of what this mask with Cupid is going to be all about, rather than its explicit, ness. Yes, I'm running out of words here. Lynn.
I'm thinking about the naming in this play, because some of the names seem to have a reference to character. The Duke's daughter, Dulcimel, anyway, sweetness, and Valentina was just saying in the chat that Dondolo means something about like rocking back and forth, so that kind of fits his character. And Nymphadoro, that's, we have nymphomania now, so those could be related. But then why Hercules? Why Herod? So it seems to me there's a hint that the names might all be significant, but I am having trouble figuring out what the significance of half the names are. The half seem to be meaningful and a half random. Don't know what to make of it.
We don't have to come up with answers now. But yeah, absolutely. Herod feels particularly weird as a series of associations for who the character actually is.
Luca, sugar?
Sorry, say again?
Luca, isn't that sugar? So Zuccone's name is something similar to the Italian for sugar. So why?
In Italian, zucca is pumpkin, and zuccone is still said for somebody who's got big head, or like is very strong-willed, or is it's a bit like dumb as well.
Well, that does fit with the character, yes. He's a bit of a pumpkin head. I think that's a very good description of him.
Yeah, so that one fits.
Yeah. Okay, we're approaching final thoughts. But any other things about this mask coming up, or about the Ship of Fools, or I mean, we before all of this, we had Herod, Hercules, and Nymphadoro just being their horrible selves. There was just sort of more of stuff we've already had. But then we did also have this whole thing with the letter, that Herod is being shamed by the letter that he wrote earlier and going, no, don't read it out. Don't read the stuff that I pretend to other people. So, which is following on from that earlier bit of business. So there's quite a bit of important action going on there. Any other thoughts on that, Eric?
There's a part of me going, like, that part was basically him bleeping out the, like, sort of swear words or, like, sexual acts or something that he didn't want to discuss in that moment, which was quite fun. Also, there's a part of me going, like, there's a lot of discussion of, like, female sexuality in this, like, sort of, you know, women wanting sex more than men or vice versa. And there's part of me going, this seems almost Victorian in that, oh, isn't it frivolous, women having like sexual drives? But then like there's a part of me going, actually no, it's if you lean into it, it makes more sense actually. Like it's almost feminist in that way, but not at the same time.
Yeah, well, remember, we've got these very venal characters coming on stage saying, "Oh God, I've been having sex all day," but it's them that driving me on and just going, "Oh, these are really," Nymphadoro really outdoes themselves with some of their dialogue, his dialogue, yeah, and you're just going, Herod, how much of this is true? It's because I've been all day. So many times. Yes, Herod. Yes, I'm sure. So yeah, there's an interesting question about truth as well, about these characters. How pathetic are they supposed to be? We shouldn't necessarily be taking on face value of their boasts about their conquests as well. Is that other people may have their number. Right, final thoughts then. As ever, we're in that difficult phase in the middle of just going, well, maybe all of this satire is to a purpose, and the ending will resolve it all, and it will all land. But we don't know yet because we haven't got there. But thoughts of the play so far. I'll go to Greg first. Any final thoughts about the general shape of the play and how it's landing?
I've got a better hold of it than I had yesterday. It kind of, to me though, I'm sure I'm wrong, but it just keeps on feeling like it should be more tragedy for some reason. There's something that just doesn't feel set right with me, but apart from all the sexual anti-feminine stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing what happens tomorrow on recording.
Yeah, Marston is described in part by himself as the writer of bitter plays, and there seems to be a bitterness at the heart of this that is perhaps a difficult pill to swallow. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Greg. I feel as though there's not like an exuberance that you would expect with these kind of characters, because it's like a court of I don't want to use the duck play, but it's like a court of almost jesters, of really what could be vibrant characters and what could be kind of almost sensational characters, and there could be like this exuberance and this vibrancy in the court, but I didn't quite feel that was there from the middle of the text. And we didn't have Zoya today, which is one of my favorite characters. And at the same time, as Greg said, it wasn't tragic. We haven't really had any murders or deaths or any plots to kill someone, assassinations. So it's sort of in the middle somewhere. It's interesting because I remember yesterday some people said that this was their favorite Marston so far, and I think this is probably my least favorite Marston so far. I do think that the dynamic between Gonzago and Dulcimel is one that I really liked. I really love the father-daughter narratives and the way the father kind of like steers the daughter's destiny. I quite like that aspect of the text.
Yeah, if you took the basic premise of this play and for this court, you could end up with something that's quite light and frothy. But there is a sort of sickness to this court that is just infecting everything, and it's a fascinating atmosphere to play with. How satisfying that is as a piece of theatre is something I think we'll need to unpack at greater length in the future. But we shall see. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I must admit I'm interested in what Elizabeth just came up, because my feeling was that Dulcimel has worked out precisely which buttons to press to manipulate Gonzago into doing what she wants, and is being very effective with it on those rare occasions that the plot actually is allowed to surface. But we're still, it's another one of these ones where we seem to have got these set pieces which have a tangential relationship to the plot line, if any.
I'm slightly moving away from that because all of the setups that we had in Act 2 are returning now. We've already had Doldo saying, we're going to have Zoya and Zuccone coming back on again, and that we're heading towards some kind of conclusion that possibly features everyone. Don't quite know where that actually is going. So it feels like, though it felt diffuse, actually it is more integrated than it at first appeared. Yesterday I'd agreed with you, but now I'm thinking actually no, this is slightly more clever than at first appeared.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just going to have to see how the last third of the play works out.
Yeah.
But I regret to being a traditionalist that's somewhat plot driven rather than the digressions.
Well, I mean, that's to a degree what we as a group have been primarily doing actually in the afternoons for the last year or so, is doing plays that are primarily driven by plot. Mad plots possibly, but action orientated rather than actually this thing which is more thematic and more diving into language as well and what you can do with effects. So there's something interesting there. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's a sort of general outline. Rachael, I think you said you were really enjoying this one yesterday. How are you feeling now?
Today, I think it dragged a bit. I think this one, this really, you need to see people doing it. You really need to see like it on stage. I feel like is like where it really shines. There were tons of bits in here that I liked, but there's some that like some parts where I am wishing that there was like plot to more the ship on, more this little ship of fools on, just so I just wish for a few more touchstones. So maybe if in production of this, I don't know if you could do it because we haven't finished yet, but if you could switch some scenes that they're where we touch on that initial plot more, or the one that seems like it should be the main plot, even though we have all these other plots going on, the Tiberio and Dulcimel plot, that one with Hercules. If you just had that touched on, or had them walk in and come in during one of those scenes, I feel like maybe you could, I don't know, bring it back to that. You know what I mean? Make it seem like it has a more central plot as opposed to all these little interconnected things that come together where you can get lost in them, because it is this, and maybe that is the point of that, of this play that I'm not getting, is that it's supposed to be all the little dispersed things and all the little cliques of the court and high society, and how they don't really have a really driven plot, but they kind of meander through all their different affairs and all their different gossip.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, we were just talking about Dulcimel, how effective that sequence with her was, and actually what this sudden breath of fresh air of not just men talking, and just actually the balance of the play seems interestingly off, and especially for a boys' company play where it's a lot easier to have a balanced cast, just simply because of the nature of the almost everyone can play any gender. So there's a deliberate decision's been made there by playwright. It's interesting to unpack that further. Valentina, you've been thrown in at the deep end. Any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, I can only comment on today. But for me, it's not that, like, I think it's a play of very Italian taste. I feel like I've seen so many of these plays. And to be fair, you're talking about balanced cast. I once saw a play, I think it's called The Princess of something, where the princess is a mute character. She never says a thing. So, you never know. But yeah, I don't know, I quite enjoyed it today. I was very confused at a certain point, because obviously all these characters and their relations to each other are a bit confused. I'd love to see these on stage, but I would also love to have a second look at this one because I kind of want to see what the atmosphere does to the rest of the play. Because I think, yes, you're right. There's quite a bitterness to it that infects the parts that could be more joyous. But it doesn't look, from what I've seen today, it doesn't look like the women are actually that armless or like unarmed. Like they are scheming as much as the men, which I like. They're just not on stage as much as the men, which is a problem. But,
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the disadvantages we have with this current format is, of course, what we're not getting is that feedback loop of the audience as well. And I think this is one where the audience responds to how the play is faring and what people are saying could play into it as well in quite a possibly terrifying dynamic way. I wouldn't want to be playing Nymphadoro.
I can play him. I find I never get the chance of like actually being horrible on stage.
Yeah, but it's the kind of part where you're just slightly afraid you're going to be in for a kicking when you walk out of the stage door. Dan, any final thoughts?
Yes, a couple. I'm really enjoying this play. I'm sad I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm much more into, if I had to choose between one or the other, if it has to be one or the other, I'd rather watch a character-driven play than a plot-driven play. So it's lovely when you have both, but that's just how it is. I enjoy watching, for example, like the Ocean's films or the Avengers films, because they're primarily, there's a plot, but you're more invested into the characters than what's actually happening. In terms of just the idea of, well, we don't have a central plot to rally around, or we haven't gone to that plot. Well, if you think of them as vignettes, and I'll refer to another filmmaker, Tarantino here, it's all going to come together at some point. This is not unseen in other playwrights of the time or other plays of the time. People are cued into this kind of structure of a play. So when Valentina says she's seen this play a million times, yeah, absolutely. I definitely have too. So I'm not too concerned with loose ends or just things that don't seem to make sense, because this is the quote that I had referred to earlier, which was in the epistle, the reader's epistle, from Marston. He's saying comedies are writ to be spoken, not read. Remember, the life of these things consists in action. So as much as Marston has gone about, I referred to this earlier, there are two quartos printed in the same year of this. This is the reason why as an actor I went into research, is because it's really good to know why the author would come back and change the text, and what does that tell us as an actor or as a playwright, someone trying to stage this would want to look at, and why were these changes made. The changes that were incorporated by the same printer for the same bookseller were things like not just words, like substantial words, punctuation marks, not having a comma at the end of a phrase, then therefore the person's going to cut them off, or having a dashes, like one or many dashes. Stage directions being put in the margins. This is the third week running now that we've seen this with What You Will before, and then whatever the play, Malcontent, which is really highly unusual at the time. Normally you'll see stage directions in the middle of the text, and unfortunately when we're working on Word, we don't see them in the left or right margins to cue us exactly when Marston wants you to imagine them happening. So he's not as controlling as Johnson, in the sense that Ben Jonson, I think we'll see with Johnson later on, she seems to fancy himself as somewhat of a literary, somebody who really
no spoilers for Johnson.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So because he's saying, hey, look, I can't do the best I can with this text. Marston says that himself, some errors will have crept in, but he leaves it to the reader to fill in the blanks, which I really appreciate, because it's the same as actors do. It's like you're never going to find everything on the page, but Marston's going to do his best to help you out, and then you make of it what you will. So I think that's really important when especially as we're doing these readings, to always remember this is meant to be, this is a character-driven piece. We're not going to see all of the action in the text or reading it out on Zoom. So for that reason, yeah.
Eric,
so go ahead.
Sorry, Eric. We vault past extra time. Eric, final thoughts.
I also have Briony's final thoughts.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
We lost Briony due to the internet conking out,
Yeah.
so do share.
Briony's final thoughts are she apologizes for eating her words a bit, and the way she likes the way Marston has written the female characters because it goes some way to balance out the misogyny of the play, and she's excited to find out how it all ends. Yeah. As for me, I would say that I find this interesting because like yesterday it didn't feel like we were going anywhere, but there was a part of me going, I'm waiting for the chaos to to start, because like in the previous two plays, it didn't take very long for the characters to sort of start, for madness to take hold, whereas this one is a slow burn, I feel, and it's much more interesting when that happens. I just wanted to see what happens in the end.
Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yes, I've been thinking about Greg's comment about a tragedy, and because I have a kind of unhealthy obsession with genre, and I've been thinking about Northrop Frye's seasonal model of genre, where comedy is spring and romance is summer and tragedy is fall and satire is winter. So there is something very hilly about this, potentially. Although I think you could push it towards comedy if you portray Dulcimel as knowing her father's kind of an idiot and easily manipulated, but she kind of loves him anyway. And when Hercules finds out that his son has changed his mind and is going to go against his supposed wishes and court this lady anyway, maybe he just goes, I don't really want her. And this is the natural way of things, that children outgrow their parents and pursue their own desires. I'm fine with it. I mean, I think if you could, he doesn't see anything, so it would take a really skillful actor to convey that. I think you could take the edge off the bitterness a little bit if you wanted to. That's just might be something to think about.
Just a brief follow-on from Dan earlier. It's not the first time the words Tarantino has been mentioned in the in the same room as Marston, so that might be an interesting framing for thinking about some of his plays. Obviously, the more violent they are, the easier it is to do that. I think that was a regular feature when we were discussing the Antonio plays with their hanging corpses. Anyway, all that remains, thank all these wonderful readers. Thank you very much, everyone. We must go. Goodbye.
Bye.
What suds art thou washed into?